Vibhuti ji, you had a few questions to ask.
Yeah, my question is that knowing what we know now, I mean, now we are able to read, we are able to configure, we are able to question, and we are able to convey to the people what the entire text talks about, including whether it is Salafi jihadism, whether it is apostasy, and everything else we know now. Is that the reason why they prohibit and punish us as an individual? Because that's their tool. Violence, subjugation, that is their tool of negotiation. Everything they indulge in extreme violence. I mean, in one of the states in India, 4 guys breached a dam and caused a massive flood. Who thinks like that? I mean, this is the kind of a vitiated mind. And it's for people like us to expose the truth of the text that they are, and only the muftis and the mullahs talk about it. They give their own interpretation to that. So question here is, how do we contest that?
Earns them reward points, 9.120 Quran.
Yeah, it's already happening. We're already doing it, right? I mean, if you go back just 14 or 15 years ago, I know because that's when I started talking. I mean, that's when I was starting to talk about these things more publicly and go around speaking and so on. But if you just go back 13, 14, 15 years, when you said that Muhammad had sex with a 9-year-old girl, no one believed you. There's no way the founder of this great religion did anything like that. When you talked about jihad, it was, no, this is something that a tiny minority of extremists believe. If you said that Islam has a death penalty for apostasy and that if you leave Islam, the penalty is death, no, that's just an extremist interpretation. Now, these things have become much more commonly known by regular people. And so now you have Muslims admitting these things, even on YouTube, admitting these things regularly. You have people like Ali Dawa saying that he's proud of Islamic death penalties for leaving Islam. You have them admitting that Aisha was 9 years old when Muhammad had sex with her. So they're admitting all the things that they were denying 15 years ago because they could back then, and because it was in their best interest to deny these things and lie about them 15 years ago. Now, because of what we've been doing in exposing the texts of their religion and the history of their religion, now they have to acknowledge these things. So the way things are heading is people are learning more and more about Islam, and they're not liking what they're finding. And they're finding out that, no, the people who 15 years ago were called liars and Islamophobes were absolutely correct. And now even Muslims are admitting that we were absolutely correct back then. But I mean, notice the in a way, this jihad is kind of brilliant in its strategy of calling for the violent subjugation of the world, but making sure no one is allowed to talk about it. You have to be quiet about it. It's a brilliant strategy. It's, hey, we've got our playbook. It's right here. It says exactly what we're going to do. It says exactly what we're going to do to you, what we can do to your wife, what we can do to your family. It says exactly what our plans are. And you're not allowed to talk about it. And you would think, if you were thinking that the world is at all sane, that if there's an ideology calling for your violent subjugation, you're going to be allowed to expose it and talk about it. And everyone, you would think that everyone, that politicians and educators and entertainers and journalists, that everyone's going to agree, wait a minute, here's this ideology. It's calling for all of us to be subjugated. We have to expose this. But it's brilliant. Jihad is brilliant in the way that it actually silences people who could expose it. But it's just starting to break down with the internet and people being allowed to show what the Muslim sources say. The strategy is breaking down. But notice when I talked about, all these institutions of power over communication, they're all on the same page. That's because they were the targets, right? It's, if you allow, you journalists, if you CNN allow any sort of criticism against Islam, it's like you're trying to get us Muslims killed, and you're bigots and you're racists. And, the journalists just go along with that. And so the goal was actually really, really smart. If we can just, talking from the perspective of jihadis, if we can just get all of the institutions of power to agree that criticism of Islam is evil and must not be allowed, then we can continue advancing our plans and no one's going to challenge it. Didn't work. It's not working out for them. It's not working out for them because now we have the ability to go around exposing them. And so you know, silencing journalists isn't enough anymore. It's just amazing that we're winning. I mean, Islam is starting to crumble from within because so much information is now available to expose it. And it's sort of crumbling from within now. And that's in spite of all this effort to silence all critics of Islam. It's not working for them anymore.